The death of George Floyd at the hands of police officers in Minnesota earlier this year set off a wave of racial unrest and street demonstrations across the country, including right here in Las Vegas. Metro police officials say they've been ahead of the curve when it comes to reforms. But what have they done to prepare for this moment? The I-Team's George Knapp has the story.
Kenosha, Wisconsin is the latest flashpoint in what has been a hot, violent summer of racial unrest. The death of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police officers ignited massive demonstrations and long simmering anger about police use of force against racial minorities. In Las Vegas, demonstrations began as peaceful protests, then erupted into violence and bloodshed, with clashes in the streets, the shooting of a heavily armed man, and the murder of a police officer. Metro officials thought they were ready.
You could just feel the anger coming from the people that were out there. And listen, rightfully so, right? I mean, they're angry at the injustice of what they had seen in Minnesota and in other states.
Metro officials admit they were surprised by the level of anger directed at police officers during the demonstrations because the department has made so much progress on race relations in recent years. Las Vegas, once known as the Mississippi of the West, has shed its segregationist past, but tensions with police have reemerged from time to time in response to notorious use of force incidents that resulted in deaths. Metro reached its turning point 10 years ago.
Coming off of 2010, where we'd had more officer-involved shootings than we'd ever had in the history of Metro. And although the number was concerning, I think that the most concerning piece is that we realized that we were shooting a high number of unarmed minorities in our community. And we realized we had to do something about that.
Gives you grade at number 2? Go to her line.
And they have. One area of change, the hiring process. More rigid background checks on officer applicants, as well as polygraph and psychological screenings to weed out racists or potential problem cops. The department has dramatically increased its outreach to minority communities as part of a recruitment effort to hire more minority officers. Training has also changed, not just for new hires, but for veterans too. Reality-based training teaches officers how to better handle touchy situations to avoid the use of deadly force. When deadly force is used, each incident is openly discussed in public briefings.
That's up to our training and counseling officers to teach those recruits in the academy and in the in-service training. It never stops.
So it never stops. So something happens like George Floyd. Do you talk to officers and say, hey, this cannot fly?
That discussion has been had department-wide by every leader in this organization. It was clearly unacceptable.
We do a comprehensive reporting on all our use of force at the end of the year, and we compare it to subsequent years. That document is on lvmpd.com. That has been recognized as the best police practice in the country. Very similar situated agencies have copied over that type of reporting.
As long as Metro hires humans to be police officers, mistakes will happen. But changes made by Metro have made it easier to monitor officers' behavior, to watch for signs that an officer is targeting minorities or using excessive force, and to make sure those who cross the line no longer carry a badge. In the weeks since the Las Vegas protests, thousands of hours of body cam video have been reviewed by Internal Affairs.
I've been in this job almost 20 years. If there are bad cops out there, I don't want them standing next to me out there in the community. I don't want them on the department. If they're doing bad things and doing bad things to our citizens, then I will help them find their way out of this department. If the officer's right, I want to prove that fact.
We do every day look at ways to get better. We're imperfect for sure, but it's not for lack of trying.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.